Welcome back to the Texas and Tomahawks podcast for like the seventh time this week. And today I am really excited because I get to do a fun episode today and get to do the interviews I miss doing so much because this past week has been absolute chaos out here in Colorado, as you all know. And I just want to welcome on Wells Jones. I call him the modern day James Bond. This guy has done some of the coolest things that I have ever read about. And I'm just like, wait a minute, I'm pretty sure I just watched that in Casino Royale last week. And I'm like, wait a minute, he didn't really die in the last one, did he? He actually is sitting in front of me right now. So, Wells Jones, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today and brightening my day.
Well, it's all bullshit, I'm telling you, man. That I have never been likened in that direction, ever.
Well, now you have.
We'll talk about your intro because I just watched your.
Isn't it hilarious?
There's so many things that pop into the mind. It's just like as quick as that montage is. Pop, 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 pop.
So I, if you know my background a little bit, I've worked in the Army Special Operations for 10 years. I was with 19 Special Forces Group for about a decade, deployed to the Middle East. I was assigned as intelligence over there. And then when I came back, I got reassigned to civil affairs. So I'm a civil affairs 38 Gulf now. I'm an intelligence sergeant, but I'm getting direct commissioned as a captain with my background. It's an interesting story to that. So civil affairs, their whole mission is to that started actually in World War II. So when the invasion of Normandy happened, Civil Affairs was the new branch in the United States Army Special Operations Command, and their objective was to bring back the population to like the United States and want to work with them. Because after you bomb the entire coastline in France and you kill all their cattle and you destroy all their agricultural fields, the people are kind of pissed at you. But the problem is the Army is really good at breaking stuff and really bad at rebuilding things. And anyone who's ever worked with the Army Corps of Engineers knows that. So civil affairs is actually composed of civilian professionals that have expertises in various things, such as agriculture, police, fire, veterinarians, doctors, lawyers. For me, it's oil and gas and industrial wastewater treatment. So when I swapped over to civil affairs after working in special forces for about 10 years, my civilian job is oil and gas and wastewater treatment. And there's actually an assignment in the Army specifically for that. And I'm like, as I've gotten older, and yeah, jumping out of planes and shooting guns is cool, but I kind of wanted to I'd like to do my civilian job in the Army and just try to make it to retirement. So the cool thing is, especially with like Ukraine, all the stuff that goes on in the Middle East, like the best way to win the population over is make sure they have food, electricity, water, right? Food, electricity, and water. That's the three main things that'll cause a civil war, right? So it's kind of like I've taken a backseat to the drone bombing and blowing stuff up, which is, it sounds cool when you're a kid. But especially for you, and you know these things, as you become a world traveler and you travel to multiple third world countries and you actually integrate with the population, you realize that the solution to humanity is so simple. And I would rather provide those things and work with people and build relationships. So I found this kid online and I'm like, hey, man. So the joke in civil affairs with all this chaos that's going on in the political climate, the joke is that civil affairs, we're like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jamie Lee Curtis in True Lies when they the opening scene when they're at that embassy party, right? And I'm like, I want a video that says civil affairs just crashes the embassy parties, and we're always doing the cool guy stuff behind the scenes, but we really just want to go, integrate and hang out with people. He's like, I got just the thing, man. He comes back in like 3 days with this video, and it's got like every major politician in it with all these conspiracy theories wrapped into it. And it comes up with like, welcome to the embassy party. I'm like, I don't know what this is, but this is perfect and it's hilarious.
Well, it's a lot of fodder, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's amazing. Well, you think of the R's, and retribution. When you're on the ground and you read the headlines, and the headlines are all about retribution.
Yeah.
Get back. I did a trek in the Middle East, and it started with an idea in 2005. So 2005, Bush had already said mission accomplished.
Yeah, that didn't work out real well.
Right? And weapons of mass destruction suddenly, abracadabra.
Yeah, and I joined in 2006, the year after he said that.
And in 2006 is when Miles and I, my co-writer of A Line in the Sand, the book that's based on this trek, we went on this trek. And to see beyond the headlines, to see for ourselves. And we followed T.E. Lawrence because he was the only Westerner we could find that had anything decent to say about the Arabs, the Muslims. And he goes back, he went back, not 100 years, but close to it.
Sure.
Back to World War I. So this whole concept of retribution and and righteous indignation.
Hmm.
On the ground, and you hear the stories from people.
Yeah.
When you share water and
Yep.
bring and sit down with them.
Hmm.
First thing that happened to us in 2006 in Saudi Arabia,
Hmm.
all right, 19 terrorists, most of them were from Saudi Arabia. The individuals, we are so sorry. What are you doing here? No one comes here. No Americans come here.
Right.
Not after 11. We are so sorry. We are not all terrorists,
Hmm.
but we appear that way. In Golden, Colorado, my electrician, when he found out I was going to Saudi Arabia, he's like, "Hey man, I hear you're going there." Yeah. I said, "Where?" He said, "Saudi Arabia." I said, "I am." He said, "You know what I do? I get pumpkins and I put towels around the pumpkins and I take my shotgun and I just blow them up."
Oh, God.
And I know that's a horrible thing to say on a podcast. I mean, at any time.
No,
But
this
I'll
is
tell
great.
you what, that was in Golden, Colorado,
Hmm.
nutrition, and the prevailing thought. So when you said, about traveling and you find out where people really are,
Yeah.
the people, different cultures, and you can appreciate them. Maybe you're not going to eat the goat that's sitting on top of the rice in Saudi Arabia, but that's okay. Some people like chicken, some don't, you know.
Well, the
But
one thing I learned in my travels in the Middle East is the goat is and the chicken is mostly okay because they kill it fresh. It's the beef you have to stay away from because they get that from like Romania on a frozen container ship, and it
yeah,
never goes out well. They don't have the same USDA standards as we do.
yeah.
Um, but no,
New
but this
Zealand is
is
the same way. They don't bleed their meat the same way we do.
correct.
We get kiwi meat when we were in Antarctica. I mean, it was just like, oh my goodness, is this American? Is this kiwi? It's like night and day difference.
No, I agree. And let's just introduce who you are, Wells. Like,
Mm,
who are you? Where did you start this incredible life that you've built for yourself?
mm,
You have a past history with the military and
mm,
traveling and all over the place. So
mm.
when you were my age, what were you doing, and how did it end up to you having all these accolades? And like I said, I introduced in the beginning of the show as the modern day James Bond. And honestly, your resume is completely incredible, and it's so fascinating. And I hope that people listen to this podcast and understand that the only way to get out of your cultural ethocentrism is to actually get out there, go visit and travel the world and see how other people live and integrate with their cultures. And you'll actually understand that we're so much more alike than we are different.
Yeah. Well, a real quick overview. Large family. I was born in Stuttgart, Germany. Father's an officer in Korea, general's aide. I have a brother born on my first birthday, two older sisters that are twins, a younger brother and sister that are twins, six kids within 6 years of age. We ended up in South Carolina, all born on Army bases. Ended up starting school in South Carolina, you
South
know,
Carolina.
South Carolina, in Pelham, South Carolina.
Yep.
And I made it to Vermont with that accent. And after I said my name in fourth grade, I got just outside the door of that little schoolhouse, and my face was in the dirt really fast because I
Hmm.
was a foreigner. I just didn't talk the same way people in Vermont did.
Right.
Anyway, went through high school in Vermont. High school graduating class was 31. It was 5 towns feeding it, very rural. And the year was 1973, and there was no way I was going to go to college. I was not ready for prime time college. It was like, I remember as a junior, I said to my mother, "I'm leaving."
Hmm.
What do you mean? I said, I'm leaving." "Where are you going?" I said, "Away." She said, "If you can't handle where you are right now, you have no business going further. Deal with where you are first, then go move on."
Hmm.
I said, "Okay." By the time I was a senior, I decided to join the Navy. Joined the Navy. I had an idea. I'd get the GI Bill, go to college. I wanted to be a jet pilot. I
Yeah.
found out, pretty quick,
Yep.
you're Air Force,
Yep.
but you're not Navy.
Did a little flying. Tried to go to the Marine Corps. That's a whole story in itself. But yeah, no, I understand exactly how you feel. So
Oh, it was on my mind, and so it just lucked out that it was just an incredible 4 years. I was assigned to an outfit, an aviation outfit out of Point Mugu, California, just north of Malibu.
Hmm.
We flew planes for the National Science Foundation around Antarctica.
See, that's a cool unit to be a part of because
Is
not everyone gets to go down there.
VXE6, right, to get to McMurdo. And so
Yep.
the year was 74, 75 season, when first time down there. But
Hmm.
before that, I was new. I was just, right out of A school,
Right.
and sitting in the enlisted men's club, and I saw these wings, gold wings on a guy, and it looked like it was a parachute or something in the middle. I
Uh-oh.
said, I just said, "What's that?" He said, "Parachute wings." "Where'd you get them?" "I earned them." Okay, man, I got it. "How'd you get them?" "So I'm a member of the pararescue team, Antarctica." He said, "You want to join?" "Yeah." "Well, you have to apply and you have to pass." I said, "Show me the way." So it just became 6 months of learning how to skydive. Number one,
Hmm.
learning a lot about medical things. Everything was for extreme weather. You see, Adam, in the Air Force, it's different. The pararescue team
Oh yeah,
is for combat,
for sure.
and it's triage on site. As you're taking off in a Huey or a helicopter. We flew UH-1N helicopters and C-130 Hercules planes with skis. And when we needed it, we would put JATO bottles on
Yeah.
and attach them. JATO, for your listeners, is jet assist takeoff. The thing about JATO, when you're trying to take off in a snowfield in Antarctica that has sastrugi, which is these 3-foot waves, it's like waves of snow and ice, and you're plowing through that. The JATO is to give you a lift. Maybe if you've seen an air show, a
Yep.
C-130 fires off JATO, and it doesn't do vertical, but it gets a lift.
Hmm.
While the JATO in Antarctica would fly off its bracket and go through a fuselage or a wing,
Oops.
and it was one of those things. That's why we had a parachute rescue team. At any rate, I had 3 seasons in Antarctica, and it was my foundation for adventure, leadership.
Hmm.
That is not something that is it's not a position, it's a behavior, leadership.
That's actually a good perspective on that. I really like that. Is that it's not just it's a behavior, right? Like that's
Right.
really
Well,
interesting.
you see, in the service, you think that if you're a seaman, a first class petty officer has rank over you, so they're the leader, or second class or first class. Certainly a chief, by the time you're chief in the Navy, you
Sure.
know something. But
Hmm.
still, what a leader really is, and what I came to understand and forgive while I was in the service, the lack of leadership was to take on the role that I thought was trustworthy,
Hmm.
that was being a little more empathetic, that was just being authentic, being decisive, from learning how to survive in Antarctica and apply medical applications to different needs
Right.
in extreme cold. I just learned how to be decisive and learn how to make decisions and be accountable for those decisions.
And you
But
have to be in those environments because
yes,
they're very unforgiving.
well,
You know.
that core, along with a Churchill quote, and I don't know, I have it somewhere. I would really mess it up, but a Churchill quote has that I found in high school. Real quick, to each there comes in their lifetime a special moment where they are figuratively tapped on the shoulder and offered the chance to do a very special thing, unique to them and fitted to their talents. What a tragedy if that moment finds them unprepared or unqualified for that which could have been their finest hour. Bells went off in my head.
Hmm.
And it's like the old motto of the Boy Scouts, be prepared. I was not a Boy Scout, but the concept and principle of that brought all those things that have happened to me in my life. And it wasn't because I said, "Oh, I'm going to be an actor." Someone said, you should act because I saw you in high school.
Hmm.
Go to acting school, learn about it because you want to travel and you want to experience all these things. experience it in your acting on stage and Shakespearean characters. You can do the research, it expand your mind, expand your talents, and that's what it became for me. And then it evolved into, well, I can't make a living here. I'll take this stuff and I'll have a production company. And with a production company being tapped on the shoulder by high level people to say, I think I would like you to direct our show at the Kennedy Center.
Oh, wow.
In the Opera House. And for me, it's like they're asking me to do something that they think I can do. And whatever it is I don't know, I will find out. And it all stems from a concept of leadership, a concept of understanding capacity is something that's in the moment that just grows. Your capacity, Adam. Does that resonate with you?
No, it does. It absolutely does, and it's such an incredible experience. So, like my uncle Donnie, he flew the old Westland helicopters down in Antarctica. He was actually on, I think it was back in the '60s, and it was kind of funny because he explained to me, like, the before the Huey came online, they had it was like the high seat, the cockpit was on top, it had the compartment on the bottom of them. And he would show me pictures of, like, him hanging out with penguins and, like, doing all these search and rescue missions for old DC-3s that would crash and go down there. And basically you were the guys that went out with them to go do these retrievals and stuff. And that was before any, like, modern synthetic, technologies, like with clothing or insulation or
think Edmund Hillary.
Yeah, exactly. You might as well be down there with, like, an old wooden ship from the Civil War going down there, basically, in that time. And in the military, like, everything's 20 years old as it is. So you're down there in the 70s, early 80s, and you might as well be using stuff from the 40s and the 50s from Korea. You know what I mean? So, I mean, even now, like, we have stuff like, oh, yeah, like when I joined in 2006, we were still using stuff from, like, the end of the first Gulf War as our equipment. You know what I mean? It's just how the military works.
No Gore-Tex.
Nope.
The thing that was beautiful about Antarctica is that the New Zealanders had an Antarctic research program as well. And those guys would have mountaineers come down to train their crew.
Right.
And they trained us on how to set up Z lines and pulleys to go in and out of crevasses, going up sides of glaciers and ice falls and all different sorts of rescue technique. And they were incredible. And their equipment was, I mean, it's like Hillary, it was anoraks, and they're heavy canvas.
Yeah.
We had Dockstein gloves, which is worsted wool mitt that you can't really bend your
no.
hand,
Yeah.
And we would call it a liner bag. I mean, sometimes I put my hand in a plastic bag, put it in the mitt, and then have an overlay, an outer shell over that Dockstein worsted wool glove and boots and things like that. But on our equipment, we were able to tap into MSR was new out of Seattle, Mountain Safety Research.
Yep.
And so we were testing their tents. We tested their first dome tent, and it was fabulous. Have it out on the polar plateau. We had it out in 80-mile-an-hour winds, and dug in a little bit, but testing these things out. Hollybar was another company, but testing things, which was very fortunate. But we had to figure out our own clothing.
Yeah.
And when I did a skydive jump at the South Pole in 1976.
Okay, a skydiving jump. Okay, it was free fall, right?
Correct.
Free fall in 1976 in Antarctica.
Correct.
I'm going to assume the equipment's a little bit different than what I've used in the past.
Well, it is. I'll tell you what, they'd just come out with the Strata Star and Strata Cloud.
Oh, that's old school, man.
I know. It was brand new then. And I'm telling you, when that chute opened, it could knock you out because it hadn't been.
Sure.
It was just insane because the shroud lines, the way it was packed, it was such a snap opening. I mean, so we didn't jump those at the South Pole.
Okay.
We had paracommanders, which were still, they were considered then high performance. There was no parachute landing falls with a paracommander.
No.
It was just flare out and there we go. But at the South Pole, it was 1976. And well, with the way the numbers are, there had been 3 other times that people had jumped. One was Air Force Sergeant
Mm-hmm.
that way back, it was almost like 57, something like that. And then a couple of guys from our group. And then by the time I would do it, I was number 7 to jump. Next time, yeah, it was
The
wild.
7th dude to jump in Antarctica ever.
Yeah.
Like, that's really cool.
And we jumped out. It was minus 59 degrees.
Oh, okay. So a little warm for you, I guess, down there.
Wim Hof, try that.
What the heck did you look like the kid from A Christmas Story trying to get? Was it a ramp jump? Was it a door jump?
Look, this is the deal. We're all suited up. Paul and I, everybody's teamed up in pairs. And Paul is checking me, I was checking me. We're all set to go. And someone says, the tail ramp won't open. Hydraulics froze.
Perfect.
So we hand cranked the tail ramp to open. So I think Paul and I were the only ones that didn't use oxygen because of the exertion. I mean, we were really fit, back then. We would run and just did things.
It's good.
But we had to crank that tail ramp open in order to jump out because until this jump, we had never relied on navigation, the navigator, to give us a green light.
Interesting.
We always used streamers because it was set up that, we would decide where the drop zone was based on where we would put a cargo container out, which is where the accident, near where any accident would be.
Sure.
And we used our streamers and had a jump master always. Different people on the team were jump masters.
Mm-hmm.
And this jump was the first time we jumped. It was one of the reasons we were able to do the jump is that it was justified because we were testing navigational aids. And our chief was making his 1,000th jump.
That's insane.
At the South Pole. And he's also, I believe he's like number 3 to jump at the South Pole.
So that's like navigational aids back then, especially for jumping. Like, you really have to know what you're doing. Like, you're looking at wind direction, you're doing map, and then you have the massive deviation there at the pole. I mean, like, I got this really fancy Garmin watch now that I just program in where I want to jump, and I jump, and then I can even navigate in midair. You know what I mean? That's not the resources you had. GPS did not exist back then.
These visuals and feeling.
That's nuts. That's so crazy. Like, I couldn't imagine doing that. Like, I mean, like, I come from a little bit of an old school military. Like, I said, I joined in 2006, so that you still had the remnants of the late 90s and stuff. So you're still doing map and compass work and everything else. But I mean, the one biggest weakness in our military now that I see with our young guys, and I'm 37, so I'm considered the old dude now in the Army, which is funny. But I see the young kids are so dependent on technology and phones and GPS, and even when that comes to artillery and aircraft flying. I mean, there's not a pilot now that doesn't fly without an iPad. And I remember we were out in Syria and Jordan, and all of a sudden the Russians were jamming out all their comms, and oh my God, the Apache pilots have to pull out a paper map and literally try to navigate on their kneeboards, and they're like, I haven't done this since pilot training. I haven't done this in 10 years. Like, what do I do? Guys are running out of fuel, landing in the middle of the desert, don't know where they are. Like, it's a problem.
Serious.
It's a serious problem. Yeah.
No, it is. Very definitely. And I loved it, to skydive, to free fall. That's when I realized I was in control of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it really zoomed in. You are in control, and you're controlling this. You've packed your own chute. It's set, and you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then that allowed, to do more. I mean, we ended up jumping with the Blue Angels in air show.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So we were an opening act. And of course, as a young guy, I thought I was pretty hot. I'm sure some of the other guys did too. I can remember stepping up the helicopter that was rotating and ready to take 3 of us up to altitude. Hopped on. I thought, I'm not going to go in the cabin. Pete's in the cabin. Paul's on the other side. He's in the doorway. But I saw Paul clip in. I sat in the doorway.
Well,
Paul clipped in, and I thought, I don't have to clip in.
I don't need a troop strap. I'm good.
Yeah. And so we get up and we're going over the Camarillo Mountains, real close to the water, Point
Mhm.
Magoo. And suddenly the aircraft, it's going, what is it, 100 maybe?
Yeah.
It takes a right bank turn. Now these guys are
That
like we are, okay? These guys are mavericks. Not, yeah, that's a good name for the movie.
right.
Well, Maverick, but they were mavericks in pure definition. They were unique and they were selected. And so the guy, when takeoffs is always just nice and easy, come up a little bit, drop the nose, and get out of there as fast as you can, and and get up. Well, we're cruising along level, and all of a sudden, a right bank turn, and it
Oops.
wasn't just an easy turn. It was a right bank turn like this. I slid out the door. My butt came off the cabin floor, and my feet caught the skid.
Oh man, you're lucky.
I was never so frightened in all my life. I was shaking. What am I doing? What am I doing?
Did you have a chute on at least?
I did.
So you'd be all right. Worst case scenario.
No. We weren't up to altitude. We were over the mountains. There was nothing but rocks and trees. It was like right there. There would be no time. None.
Oh man.
I mean, I lost control of myself. Someone said, "Yeah, you okay?" And I looked around, gave the thumbs up, and I'm telling you, it was a cold sweat. And I had to answer a question to myself.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Why are you doing this? You do not have to do this. Why are you doing this?
Mm-hmm.
I said, transportation.
Transportation.
It's transportation. I need to get from here down there. I am a member of the Antarctic Pararescue Team, rescue team. This is the quickest way to get down to help.
Mm-hmm.
And everything I stopped shaking. And we had already been working our way up and went on streamer run, tossed the streamers and jumped. And that was the last time. But it was my ego.
Yeah.
It was my ego that put my tail in, sitting in the door. I thought, oh, we see it in the movies. Now,
How old were you at the time?
Oh, it was probably 20.
Yeah, that makes about sense. Right about sense. Yeah, you think
You
you're
know?
invincible.
Well, when you have things like that happen, and I did, I realized that I needed to understand purpose.
Mm-hmm.
What's the purpose? And so that became another thing that's a part, like the Churchill thing. You get tapped on the shoulder, but you're doing it with a purpose.
Right.
Whether it's working for a foundation that's serving all these kids around the country,
Mm-hmm.
or if it's doing this event in order to raise money, or if it's kayaking across Long Island Sound and raising money with all these kayakers and giving checks to charities. It's adventure with purpose.
I like that.
And it fused into family, it fused into children. It just became a mantra. Not something that I said to everybody. I did with Miles, my good buddy. I said, all of life, this is all. Adventuring, just like the Middle East thing, it's adventuring to understanding. There's a purpose.
Yes.
It's not like, oh, dude, let's go hang out in Saudi Arabia. No, in 2006, when you were close by.
No, and you bring such a relevance to that, and I think this is something that's missing from, especially the masculinity argument in America today, is that men have lost their purpose, and even women too. I would say that as well. We've digressed into this consumerist society where we can order everything on Amazon in 30 seconds. We don't need to go outside. We don't need to exercise. We don't need to take care of our bodies. We could just bitch and complain on the internet all day. But there's an entire world out there outside of your little block that you live on. And I think that you have exemplified that. And just, okay, so I went to the most remote area in the world, jumped out of an airplane. I didn't just go visit and see the penguins. I was jumping out of airplanes down there, and you can see that the world is always trying to kill you, which is what I always found. Mother Nature's always trying to kill you. You know what I mean? It's always trying to suck your body heat out, and you can tame it. You can tame yourself to, respect it and respect the environments that you're in. But I mean, like I was on search and rescue. I was a firefighter EMT for years, and man, I mean, the amount of rescues I went out and the bodies I pulled off of mountains, because you
Mm,
don't respect the environment that you're in,
mm,
and you think you're smarter than things that have
mm.
been around for, I don't know, billions of years, including that rock you just smashed your face off on because you didn't have the right equipment, right? So you bring up something that's like such an important discussion for today, and it's just like it's not that you can't do these things, is that do you want to do these things?
Mhm.
Anyone can do these things. You just have to set your mind to it. And do you have a purpose in what you're doing? You may not be good at something, but you can always train on something. You can always learn a new skill. You can always focus your efforts on doing that. And just your initial experience with joining the Navy and being in pararescue in Antarctica exemplified and exploded into so many other things moving on.
You
And
did.
that was only at you being 20 years old. Most
Yes.
kids don't even know how to charge a cell phone at 20 years old, or will drive down the street without their GPS on their Google going. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
This is
Mhm.
actually why I encourage most people to like join the military when you're young, join the Peace Corps, something like that. Like
Mhm.
something to get you out of your box and out of your irrelevant little community town.
Yeah.
You got to step outside. You got to travel around the country. You got to go climb a mountain, scuba dive in the ocean. Go do something. But you
Yeah.
can't just isolate yourself to your same hometown for your entire life, and then you think you have the right to complain about international politics or something like that when you've never even been to those countries.
And you have a strong opinion. My oldest boy, Casey, um, 19 years old. At 18, well, 17, he was too young. I took him into New York to Wilhelmina because he's a handsome guy, and I was acting in New York.
Hmm.
And I thought, well, maybe Casey could do some modeling, male mod, clothes and stuff like that. Well, Wilhelmina took him on, and they had a separate division called ICE. The division for guys called ICE. These are the elite, you know.
To be clear, I was never good enough for male modeling, nor did I make it onto ice.
Well, Casey, listen, Casey took care of it for both of us.
Perfect.
So, 19 years old, he grew up in California. He spent summers with me. His senior year in high school, he stayed in New York, in the New York area where we lived in the country,
Hmm.
and to go to high school his senior year. And so he had relationships and whatnot, and he got into New York, and he got into modeling, and he got into a whole lot of stuff at a very young age,
Sure.
like an 18-year-old guy dating 30-year-old women, 20 years. I mean, just all of that. He called me up and he said, "Dad, you better sit down." I said, "Casey, what's going on?" He said, "There's three things that are going on." He said, "I know you were Navy, and Granddad Jones was Army, and Granddad so and so was Army, and so was Air Force, and blah, 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 and Navy and aviators and stuff." He said, "I'm going into the Army." I said, "You are? What about going to Milan? You're going to do the runway modeling." "No, no, no more. I'm through with it. That's not for me at all." I said, "Okay. So you're going to go into the Army? Okay, well, that's wonderful. When?" He said, "In a month,
Oh,
I'll be in." I said, "Fantastic." And he said, "And I'm getting married."
just throw it all out there on the table at once. Hey, I'm joining the Army. I'm getting married. Classic.
I said,
What a Camaro at 20% interest too at the dealership down the street while I'm
"Yeah,
at it.
yeah, exactly." And I said, "Anne Marie? No, no, not Anne Marie. No. Who? Rochelle." I
Oh, of
said,
course, that one. Yes.
"Rochelle." Okay. He explained Rochelle. He's been married 29 years. He has three daughters.
That's
He
amazing.
has 18 years as an LA County fireman, and he was on the fires in Malibu and in California. He was
Hmm.
out of Malibu. He's airborne. Well, he went into the service. He became an airborne medic. He said, "I want to do what you did. That's what I want to do."
Okay, good. So he didn't join the infantry. Just
No,
classify it. You don't
no,
have to
no,
join
no,
11
no.
Bravo, everybody. You can actually go do something else in the Army. I promise you. There's way
Yeah,
cooler things to do.
he was airborne. My point is that those things gave him such skills and it led him to where he is now. And he's done a full circle because now he's with the Malibu Air Division, helicopter division with the fire department.
That's really cool, man. But I mean, and actually, he's a rare case because you get most kids who are that good looking, dating Italian,
Right.
models or whatever.
Right.
Their marriages don't last more than 6 months. I mean, this guy has an entire life. He's got children. He's jumping out of helicopters. He's joining the military. And you know what? And I think a lot of it comes from you, where you set the example of what good masculinity, being a good American is, and that if you have purpose and you're driving and doing those adventures, it focuses you down to your most like core behavioral principles as a man. And that's like, I want to contribute to my country. I want to be a father. I want to be a good husband, and I want to keep contributing and saving my community because I have the capabilities of doing those things. And
Right.
it's a discussion that men don't want to have today, and it drives me absolutely insane. You know what I mean? It's like, it's okay to be a man, and it's okay to go out and do things, and you need to fail consistently in order to find out, one, what you're good at, two, what you shouldn't be doing, and three, how you can make yourself better every single day. Because every day that you're given is God's gift to you, that you
Mhm.
actually woke up, and it's another opportunity for you to go out and seek those adventures and seek those things.
Mhm.
And when you have men that have a purpose-driven life, they don't stray from the line. They don't have to. They're not out and seeking, drugs or alcohol or all these other crazy things, right? It's like, no, I get my adrenaline rush from jumping
Right.
out of planes and doing this and helping my kids and raising my family and spending
Right.
time with my wife. The solution is so simple, but people make it so complicated.
Well, because they feel like they have problems and they have to deal with it, and they need to soften the edges. We need to make it, it's just the obstacle is the way.
Yeah, by,
The
with, and through. By, with, and
impediment,
through. Exactly.
the impediment to action advances action.
And some men just don't want to do hard things anymore. And actually, that's your biggest problem. If you take the easy way out, you will find other things, such as drugs and alcohol or all these other, things in life that mess people up. When the solution is, I promise you, you go out and do enough push-ups till you break your own body, you're going to find out who you are. You start doing sprints until you can't breathe anymore. You're going to find out what your body's really capable of. If I hold you underwater till you pass out,
Right.
like I was doing when I was doing some training with the Air Force, like I promise you're going to find out there's limits to your body that you did not know exist. But you have to be willing to push that threshold and understand who you are and what you're capable of doing.
Absolutely, Adam. I found that out when I started doing sunrise summits, is what I call it. And I started in Colorado
Mm-hmm.
on some 14ers. Did a 14 or a couple of them, and I thought, ooh,
Yeah, those will humble you real quick.
it sure does. It
I
sure
almost
does.
I almost killed myself hiking Little Bear. That's the second most dangerous 14er in Colorado. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go hike it by myself. I'm hiking through the bowling alley. There's rocks coming down around me. Next thing, there's a lightning storm and a snowstorm in the middle of July while I'm on top. I'm stripping down naked. I'm falling off 20-foot cliffs, trying to get down on a broken rope that I found there, hanging off a rock. I mean, I survived. I shouldn't have, but you know what I mean. I sat there and went, yeah, that was stupid. I learned what my limits were.
Yeah,
Almost got myself killed. You know
yeah,
what I mean? But I learned from that experience because it was difficult and it was hard and it was stupid, but I learned
yeah.
from it.
Well, I learned things like that in Antarctica,
Hmm.
uh, scrambling around in the dry valleys on the nose of the dais and getting stuck. And part of it was because my head was half there and half on the Kiwi guy that was leading us.
Hmm.
So pull, tap, come, follow me, just stay close. And they were in front too. I mean, it was just like 1, 2, 3. I was the third guy, and I got stuck on the nose. And it's like there was at least 15, 1,700 feet between my legs, nothing,
Yeah.
nothing, and shaking. But it's because on my head, I wasn't in flow. Again, it was ego. I was thinking of Stu and what a dick he is. And guess what? Above my head, looking down, says, "Tap! Move your left hand 6 inches on a diagonal at 11 o'clock. Move your right foot." And I was out. But I wanted to let go before I heard it.
Hmm.
I wanted to let go. So when I've done a mountain here in the 70s, high 70s, sunrise summits. In the beginning, it was 5 hours to get up to the top. The mountain's called Baldy here in Santa Fe,
Hmm.
in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. I worked that down to 3 hours. I found that there were times, you talk about risk. I never think of risk. It's not in my head
Yeah.
at all.
Nope.
Risk is defined by another person that says, "Oh, you're taking risks," and that's their thought. But to find out where, like what you were just saying, how far do you go and when do you turn back? That's when you learn lessons.
Sometimes the hard way.
And the wind between 70, 80 miles an hour, you can check it. Baldy, that's where the winds get up to,
Yeah.
and that's in the winter.
Yeah.
It's minus 20 something degrees.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you have pushed it. It's time to turn back. And I have been able to do that without regret.
Well, that's why you're still alive, because all the bodies I pulled off of mountains on 14ers were so-called experienced people
Mhm.
who were just like, no, I'm going to summit.
Yep.
Nope, I'm not going to take the warnings. Nope, I'm not going to use my training. No, Mother Nature can't kill me. I'm invincible. Okay. Yep, and then I'm up there in a National Guard helicopter, rappelling down a collier to pull out your broken body parts and deliver them back to your family because you were a dumbass.
Adam, and when I do it, it's not out of fear. It's out of a reasoned choice.
And also, you're a father and a husband. You have a responsibility. Like, it's one thing if you're like one of those single, like the guy, what was his name? The kid who went up to Alaska.
Super.
Yeah. So I forget the name of the book. But
McCandless.
Yeah, McCandless, right? So he's like, I don't want to be in finance anymore. I'm going to burn my car on the side of the road, get rid of my IDs, and go to Alaska. All right, yeah, you're having a little quarter life crisis, as John Mayer likes to say in his famous album Room for Squares. And he's going up there and he's going around the wilderness. He's learning how to survive, and it's really admirable. And the basic of things killed him. Some poison berries. He got sick and he died and rotted in a sleeping bag in a VW Bug or whatever, or a school bus in the middle of nowhere. And that's it. And that's your legacy. I mean, yeah, it made for a great book. I read it in high school, but at the end of the day, like, you didn't get to have kids. You didn't get to get married. You didn't get to have these things because you didn't have any responsibilities. But you as a man who's done these adventurous things, but you take that calculated risk. You use your training. You use your common sense, so to speak. And it's always okay to go try another day. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, okay, I failed. All right, well, we're gonna reorganize and retrain and go back to it. But there's no reason, especially when you have responsibilities as a husband and a father, to go out and put yourself at risk. Like even now, it's like, yeah, I still do skydiving and I still do jumping. I still do some dumb things, but they are a much more calculated risk now than when I was 20, going like, you know what? I don't need good sleep. We can go out drinking all night. We can go PT for an hour in the morning, and then we're gonna go jump out of planes and throw up because that's gonna be awesome, bro. No, it's not, you idiot. I tell my young guys now, I'm like, hey, I thought that was a good idea when I was your age too. Take my advice. Your old crusty sergeant here, soon to be captain. That it's not going to work out well for you. So.
Well, good lessons learned. The win is return is getting home, no matter how far you've gotten up. And so the concept of peak bagging, pictures, they're not in me. I have some beautiful artistic pictures, like coming through just a teeny little hole, the sunrise, and it's gorgeous. Or some bighorn sheep in the high meadow, high, way up, and you can see the wind blowing their coat, and just something like that. But other than that, it's not me. Like, hey.
Well, I mean, that's what everybody tries to do today is they all want the selfie, they all want the picture, they all want the things. And like one thing I do a lot, especially when I'm out in the wilderness, is like unless I have a GPS transponder with me, because I'm not that dumb. Something goes bad, I can hit the little button so people can find me. But I think it's so important to disconnect from those things. And I think you grew up in a generation where it wasn't an issue. You don't need to post on Instagram or Twitter that I'm here in Antarctica hanging out with the penguins, skydiving, like, cool, look at me. It's like, man, these are my personal experiences. The only people that care about them are me. And I have my memories and I have my experiences with my friends, and that's what matters. And I think it's kind of a regret that a lot of guys have in the military. I tried to take more pictures when I was overseas, but like the biggest regret I see a lot of the guys that I deployed with is like, we didn't take enough pictures when we were overseas. Wow. And those were some of like the best times we had in our life was, you know what? This sucks. It's 135 degrees. We're wearing a plate carrier. We're running around Iraq or Kuwait or UAE or Saudi or Jordan or Syria. you know,
Yeah.
and we're hanging out with all this cool big equipment and jets and guns and like mortars and
Mm.
stuff and whatever else. And then it's like you remember all you're living in the moment, and then you get home and you're like, man, I got one picture of me in combat equipment at the airport from
Yeah.
that entire time I was there. There's like
You know what I
one
mean?
picture,
I
you know,
did
but
the,
but
I did the
but I
same way.
but and although it's like it sucks that there's not enough pictures to go back and look at, I think the good part about that is, and kind of I think you'll agree with me, is that we were so immersed in a positive human experience at the time and just spending time with our friends and really, you know, building those relationships and that camaraderie that you didn't need to remember it because it was something that's going to be ingrained in your mind forever anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the way it was with going to the Middle East.
Yeah.
The training to go to the Middle East, the training in '05 and winter '06 was intense. And
But
it
that must have been a
started,
contentious time for you to go to the Middle East because, like, we're right in the middle of Iraq.
yes.
Stuff's popping off overseas in that time frame. My friends were getting killed in 2006, 2007, 2008. So you transition from this Antarctic. You know, you're in the Navy. You know, you're raising a family now. You know, you're sending your kids getting married, join the Army. You know, how did you even end up like, hey, you know what, I'm gonna go to the Middle East? Like, this sounds like a good idea. Like,
Well,
right after 9/11.
yeah, it started with me with after the Navy, I ended up acting. It was my mother. She said, "Really, you're a born actor." I was going, "What's a born actor?" Anyway, I went to school in Santa Barbara, and then instead of going to LA, after meeting with LA managers and whatnot, I decided to go to New York and really study classical acting,
Mhm.
and I loved it, and I did very well. But I couldn't support a family. I
Makes
just
sense.
couldn't on doing Off-Broadway. I wasn't a star, and everybody was getting paid the same amount in order to do these wonderful plays, to be directed by these wonderful people. So I had that experience. And
Mhm.
then I said, I need to do a one-man show, kind of like Hal Holbrook did with Mark Twain. And
Yeah.
then there was another show that was going around New York. It was a guy that he learned the book of John by heart. And so it
Impressive.
was the gospel according to John.
Mhm.
And he dressed up and he did it. And it was impressive. It was impressive, you know. And I said, but who could I do? And I said, Lawrence of Arabia. I was thinking Peter O'Toole, you
Mhm.
know. He's tall, I'm tall. It was a romantic. I mean, I could wear these clothes. I could talk about, just find out what he's about. So I did a lot of research. I mean, read his 7 Pillars of Wisdom.
Mhm.
And at some point, I found out he was 5'5.5". And I said,
Interesting.
I can't do him. There's no way. I actually had a conversation with Hal Holbrook
Mhm.
in the White House at an event where I met him. And I mentioned to him, he said, that's a great idea. I said, but he's not Peter O'Toole. Peter
Right.
O'Toole is 6'1", 6'2". And he said, but that's okay. Just get a bigger chair when you're on stage. And I
Just get a
go,
bigger chair. It's fine.
what? What? And I said, no, Hal, I couldn't do it. Anyway, I came back from DC doing a job, and it was,
What made you think it was a good idea to go to DC, Wells? I mean, I've been there, and I understand it's important. I understand as because what I tell people, you have two choices in life as being an American, especially all these people that complain all the time. You can be a resident or you can be a citizen. A resident is somebody who goes to work, you know, they take care of their kids, they ignore everything outside that's going on, and then for some reason they think they have the authority to bitch and complain on the internet and cause
no.
mass chaos and burn down cop cars. Or you can be a citizen and you can actually take a responsibility in the most freest country we live in the world. And if you don't believe me, go to any other country outside the United States and actually participate, take some responsibility in your local government and actually participate, whether it's a school board or whether you want to run for president. I don't care, but participate in your local government just a little bit in order to say that you are a citizen and not just a resident, right? And that's why I decided working in DC and trying to make positive changes. I didn't realize how difficult it was going to be. I'm on my 15th year of doing this now, you know. But like, what made you want to go to DC before you started your next big adventure?
Well, I was the producer director with my wife. We had a production company that I was telling you about. I couldn't afford doing. I was looking for a one-man show.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't do
Right.
Lawrence. No way. His 5'5.5" stature was integral to his drive. Integral.
Right.
Truly. We'll leave him. to one side for a moment. So we started a production company, and that's when we were tapped to direct Kennedy Center, Lincoln Center, Orchestra Hall, Chicago. It just blossomed because it was the right fit, and we were ready to do it. Figured out what the elements are needed. I just all my training in the military and my personal ethics and code and level of integrity and trust. I put teams together. We had sound people and all this sort of thing.
Yeah.
The individual that started this organization was the wife of a former Secretary of Education and drug czar. I want to get too deep into names. The chairman of their board was Alma Powell, Colin's wife.
Interesting.
They discussed it and they said, we need him to run the foundation, not just do the events that have just been spectacular, but to run the foundation. Mm-hmm. So tapped on the shoulder, sold the house in New York, bought a house in Chevy Chase, Maryland, and 4 years in DC. And it was 24/7. I had an agreement that had 1 month of vacation. I didn't see that in 4 years at all. I mean, I think I took 7 days vacation in 4 years, and it was truly on all the time. And it was at a high level. The members of the board were several current cabinet secretary wives, and it was just very involved. But I did love it, and it was an experience. And afterwards, I left and made it back through towards Miles, where I was from. And that's when he asked me if I knew anything about T.E. Lawrence. Mm-hmm. And I said, yeah, I was going to do a one-man show. No way. Yeah, man, I was. He said, you're perfect. And that's exactly what I have in mind, because we should do a stage production, you're Lawrence, and bring back all the information from 1919 when all those agreements were made that started this Middle East mess. It's the foundation.
Oh man, you could go into the history of this. And the funny thing is, as an intel guy, I thought it was my moral duty and responsibility to understand what was really going on. Like if I'm going to be directing the airstrikes and I'm going to be telling people what to do, then I better understand the people that I've been told that we have to eliminate. Mm-hmm. Right. And when you really, really start digging into stuff, it is fascinating. Like I remember I was deployed with privates who didn't even know who Osama bin Laden was. They didn't even know why they were deployed into the Middle East. Right now, I'm a 9/11 kid. Obviously, I lost family in the towers. Like I literally saw the buildings burning and collapsing when I was in New Jersey and my grandmother's house in Edgewater, right across. Yep. She just died this year. I love this lady, but she's 100 years old, right? But died in the same house she was born in 1924, right? And she lived a mile south of the George Washington Bridge entrance in one of the last original houses in Edgewater. You know what I mean? Everything else is condominiums, right? So I actually did 2 podcasts with her before she died. And just really, I just wanted that history recorded. You know what I mean? And, you know, I fell into the propaganda stream when I was 18, you know, about the Middle East and all these people are bad and they're all terrorists and everything else. And you saw that. And I think Robin, I don't know, you remember, obviously you're an actor. So do you remember when Robin Williams did his skit at the Met? And he's like, 9/11 was the best thing that happened to Indians here in New York City, because right after that happened, they said, well, now no one wants to go after us. They're all going after the Middle Easterners. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, you know, it's true, because I saw that the only time I saw massive American levels of patriotism in this country was on 9/12, the day after. Right. And probably 6 months after. But like, the problem is and when you really start diving into how government works, you realize that, man, have I been lied to for a long period of time about everybody and everything. And like I said, you don't really understand these things till you get overseas. And when you understand the history of how the Middle East was carved up, post, you know, World War I, post World War II, and even before that, like there's still English, you know, cemeteries in Iraq, right? Yes. Nobody talks about that.
Gertrude Bell is in Baghdad.
Yeah, yeah, and another interesting thing is like even just go back to like the Indiana Jones movies from like the 20s and 30s. You know what I mean? Like you see that there's a lot more going on, and even Kuwait was a massive area for oyster diving.
Mm,
You know, back in the days when that was a merchant trade area. You know, before oil and gas, and Halliburton went in there in 1947 and started
mm,
drilling out there and moving, and that's what really changed. That entire region was a discovery of oil, and
absolutely.
you know, and it corrupted a lot of the regimes and a lot of the people and the Bedouin tribes and everything out there. But things are not always what they seem, and I think you also came to realize this as somebody who was preparing themselves and took the responsibility to understand, you know, Lawrence's travels and everything else he
Mhm,
did across the Middle East. But
mhm.
you know, trying to understand like this is somebody who came before me and did these things, but it's also my ethical and moral responsibility to understand the cultures that I'm going to immerse myself in.
Right. And the thing about Lawrence that was so spectacular, his progression as a kid in Oxford, England, working his way, the evolution of what became Lawrence of Arabia
Right.
is fascinating.
Yeah.
It's truly fascinating. And he just loved the people. He understood tribe, tribe, tribe. They fight with each other, but he
It's
didn't try to change them.
right. It's still that way today, by the way.
Exactly. And when he was tapped on the shoulder to participate because he knew Arabic, because he knew understood the cultures and the people that were now in charge of the Cairo, bureau, the intelligence bureau, were the people that sent him to the Middle East in the very beginning. So they've seen this kid, a protege, grow up, and they said we must use him, and he will find a leader in the Arab revolt that can stand up for the Arabs. Faisal.
Right.
It's very much like the movie. But all of his efforts were undermined. 1916 Sykes-Picot Agreement.
Hmm.
1916. British and French saying, look, if we win the war, what do you want?
Right.
What do you want? Do you take Syria? Well, we'll take Basra. And what's the need? Resources.
Yes. Yeah, and this is right before the Industrial
Resources.
Revolution kicked off. This is right before, you know, Western Europe was transforming itself, and this is, you know, even precursor to, you know, the discovery of, you know, and archaeological finds, you know, in the pyramids in Egypt and the plundering that went on there, and you know, and as you understand, you go into these areas and you start removing their cultural artifacts and some of the
Mhm.
oldest civilizations in the world, and even in Syria and Damascus, some of the
Mhm.
oldest structures of human civilization, you know, even before biblical times.
Mhm.
It's going to piss them off a little bit. You know what I mean? Like it's disrespectful to their cultures. You know, like how would you feel if, you know, people came over to the United States and started, you know, taking out George Washington's house in Morristown, New Jersey, and just start bringing it back to their country, right? Like, you know, we'd probably have a few opinions about that. But like the problem, and I think you would agree with me on this, is that there are some aspects of Western society that think these people are less than us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, look at the current engagement in Gaza
Oh my
and,
God, I
and
could
in
talk about that
Israel.
all day. I
And
was I was there on the West Bank when that reporter had gotten shot. We were doing some touring, you know, as intel guys, we tore,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
it was nuts. And what I'll just say it because you know what, I don't care who sees this. But when we were out there, you know, there's this big schism between the Israelis and the Palestinians out there, right? And I was getting toured around. We were with the Jordanian Defense Forces out there. You know, we're wearing civilian clothes. We're walking up and
Mhm.
down the Jordan River, and we're seeing where Christ was baptized on the Jordan side, which you can't access on
Mhm.
the Israeli side, because if our passports got stamped in Israel, we were never allowed back in any other Middle Eastern country. People don't like to talk about that, but it's, you know, it's a serious thing over there, and I wanted to make sure I could go home. So I didn't want to, like, you know, put myself off on an island with no passport and, you know, get stuck there like
Did
everyone
you
else
go
is.
across from Jordan to Israel?
No, because if we crossed into Israel, we were not allowed to go back to our main army base.
How would they have proof that you were there?
Well, when I'm the big giant white guy that's obviously in the U.S. military wearing aviator sunglasses, a black T-shirt, and khaki tactical pants, it's a little freaking obvious of who I'm working for. I'm like, I am totally from Russia. They're like, no, you're not. I'm like, I totally am. And we're staying at this hotel, and it's a Russian flag with an upside down American flag. We're like, we are not very welcome here. I see
Oh
that.
man.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, but what people don't want to talk about is like when I was there, like right the day before we had gotten there. We were talking to the Jordanian defense forces about the threats in the area and everything else. Well, the Israelis had put a bunch of landmines right there near the Jordan River. And what the Israelis had done the week before is that they had killed a bunch of animals and threw them in the river to poison the water source down to the Palestinians. And that is actually a perfect growing agricultural area, that whole area, the Jordan River Valley. It's the only place where they can grow food.
Right.
Everything else has to be imported because they decimated if you actually read the Bible and you go back to it, that whole area used to be forested and beautiful, and the Jordan River used to be huge. But during the siege and during the Crusades, they cut down all the trees to make siege weapons, to take down Jerusalem, thousands of years ago. And the area never recovered after that. And the settlements, and then the Jordan River is now like 10 feet wide and like 3 feet deep now compared to what it used to be. And the Israelis put all these landmines on the river, and then all these Jordanian kids were going down to the river to get water, and they got blown up, and they killed all their children, like 3 to 7 year olds, right? And that these people, they don't have passports. They're stuck in this area. They can't leave. And if they try to go anywhere else, they get banished, and then they have no place to go home. So they're living in tents in the Jordan River Valley. They're basically indentured slaves to either the Jordanian government or the Israeli government, depending on which side they sit on. And their parents are angry. Well, obviously, you just killed all of their kids. So they're ISIS is like, because they're like the Joker and Batman. They're like, well, I know you guys are really mad that they just killed all your kids, and we just left this pallet of rockets over there that just happened, and a bunch of ski masks if you guys want to head over there. So they obviously retaliate. They shoot a bunch of rockets into Israel, and then right after that, they send in 4 F-16s and level an entire tent community and kill hundreds of people. But then the way the Israelis report it is, well, they were a bunch of terrorists. So, it's a win for America, and this is a win for Western forces. I sat there and just went, but that's not what happened. That's not the truth. And once you're on the ground in Israel and in Jordan and you see what's actually going on, there's definitely two sides to that story that's not being discussed. And in my personal opinion, I mean, you've seen the wall that Israel has built between there. There is no way you're getting within a mile of that thing without them seeing you. It's not possible. Yeah. Right. And in my personal opinion, that does not represent the U.S. government or anything, because I have to use that disclaimer. Netanyahu 100% allowed that attack on October 7th to happen in order to justify leveling Gaza. And the thing is that those terrorists are a lot smarter than they think and than we think they are. They're actually very calculated. They know what they've been doing. They've been at war for over 20 years, especially in that region. They did not anticipate the hostages being taken and the other coordinated tactical efforts, and that's why this human tragedy has been going on for so much longer than they anticipated. But the Israelis, if you look back in the 60s and 70s, Gaza was a beautiful beachfront property. And Trump jokes about it like, oh, we're going to go in there and we're going to make it like West Palm Beach. I'm like, well, that's what it used to be. That's what it used to be before all this chaos started, but people do not understand the level of human suffering that's going on in that area right now.
No, they don't.
They Absolutely. Have no concept of how bad it is. They just see whatever the Israeli government wants to be able to go out, because they jam all the cell phone towers so they can't post on TikTok or Snapchat and get the real stories out, and to a lot of these Middle Easterners that are suffering in that area, Hamas, terrorist groups, whatever, they're technically labeled as terrorist groups. They are viewed as the only people that are going to fight for those people because no one else ever has. And that's why they haven't given up. And that's why it's just turned into this onslaught, and everyone thinks that you can resolve everything with F-16s and 2,000-pound JDAM bombs. But obviously we've seen not the case. It's not the case. And I hope that conflict finds some resolve here in the future. But like I said, there's a lot more government propaganda going on in that area, and people do not understand how bad that situation is and how many people have died as a result of those actions.
Right.
So.
And I mean, we got a glimpse of tragedy when we saw the fires in California and saw the destruction in Gaza, and the number of deaths is it's outrageous. But
we did the same thing in World War II, though. Look at Dresden. We firebombed that entire town and killed everybody. Most of them were civilians. Nobody wants to talk about that. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, we won World War II and killed the Nazis. I'm like, yeah, we killed 150,000 civilians in 2 days.
Right.
You know what I mean? And Hiroshima and Nagasaki, we dropped 2 nukes and killed
Sure.
hundreds of thousands of people.
Sure.
Yeah, but they're our best ally in the region now. I'm like, yeah, because we nuked them, but I'm not saying that should be the resolve for everything, right? And this is the art of war. This is
Yep. Yes.
apocalypse theory in the military, strategical theory, aspect. But it's for people who have never served in the military, who've never been to these areas and understand. We are blessed to be separated by 2 gigantic oceans in our country, so we don't have, people understand the tactical and strategic value of that. You know what I
Yes.
mean? But these areas have been under suffering for thousands of years, and that's just how they live. And we've interjected in a lot of things we probably shouldn't have been involved in. And it's not, and I think you would agree with me on this as well. It is not possible to turn to these countries into so-called American model democracies.
Oh,
You know,
Lord.
it's not possible. That's not how these people operate, and they never will.
No.
They never will.
No.
Afghanistan's a perfect example of that, right?
It's a hubris. I mean,
Yes.
it's hard to even define or to get the scope of how off track it is and what it will generate down the road,
Yeah.
the continuation. And certainly from Miles and my perspective, our going to the Middle East and the training that we had to get in there was just to understand what you're saying. To me,
I'm surprised you even got a passport during that time period, to be
it
honest.
was tough. It was very tough. But we were the biggest one was to get into Saudi. And Miles and I had done a television show called Money Hunt, and it was his concept. He was one of the co-host of it. It's a pre-Shark Tank show that was just fabulous. It's you can look it up. Wikipedia has a Money Hunt, and he wrote a book about rules of entrepreneurship. And that book he was able to use to get into Saudi Arabia through a YEO. YEO is Young Entrepreneurs Organization, and they had a chapter in Jeddah. And so we got in. We got a sponsorship, and we were able to get in. But once we were there, they said, okay, very nice, Miles. Thank you. Why are you here? Why are you here?
Yeah, are you a
No
CIA
one comes
operative?
here. No one comes here. There's got to be something more than. And said, well, we want to see with our own eyes. He said it in Arabic, and we're following the path of T.E. Lawrence during the Arab Revolt, who's going north through Jordan, Syria to Damascus, and the room erupted. That charlatan, my uncle knew him.
Yeah.
My grandfather knew him. And
they're all like that. They're so animated when it comes to their storytelling and their interactions.
Up tall, they were just like saying, "But my grandfather, no, my uncle was closer than your grandfather was to."
That's exactly what they do.
Oh,
it's so funny.
But I will say that one of the things that was the first big surprise was when we were invited to a majlis, which is where a prince, in this case, or the governor of Asir, was having his, I believe it's monthly majlis, and it's where the sheikhs come in from the desert, and the sheikhs are the camel owners, Bedouin. And there were about, I don't know, 40, 50 guys lined up in this long hall room. And at the end is His Royal Highness Prince Khalid bin Faisal bin Abdulaziz. Now, he is the son of King Faisal, one of the sons.
Right.
And so has a majlis, and we're listening, and we learn things. It's all in Arabic. We have a translator that's in our ear telling us what's going on. And then we're finished, and it's nighttime. A lot of things are done at night, especially eating, like after midnight. There's a lot of eating done.
Well, it's too hot out there. Why that? And they all do that. They go outside. They set up their tents. They take the little generators. They turn their 240-volt party lights, and then they eat in the middle of the night because it's way too hot to do anything during the day.
It is the case. And a traditional meal takes time to kill the goat and to set it up.
One thing I'll give the Middle Easterners, I actually enjoyed their local cuisine and their food quite a bit. Quite a bit. It's fantastic, and it's actually very, very good.
So majlis is over. Prince Khalid and his entourage are moving towards us. We went out one door. He's coming up the path to go to his quarters, and he stops, and he says us by name. Mr. So, Mr. Miles, Mr. Tad, um, thank you for being here. I'd like to invite you to dinner with me.
That's a big respect over there. Getting invited to dinner is a big thing.
You will see that we are not all terrorists. And it was like, and he moves on. Half an hour later, we're sitting up on a raised area. All the sheikhs are down below and having a meal with His Royal Highness Prince Khalid.
And for people who don't understand Middle Eastern culture, that is actually one of the highest honors, is to be in an elevated position with the village elders and be invited to dinner. Like, getting that is a huge amount of respect. So that's really impressive.
It was very special. And when he said in Arabic that we were there to see with our own eyes and follow T.E. Lawrence's path, all the sheikhs, I mean, these guys looked like they were out of central casting.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they were like Moses. Well, that's Moses. Yeah, that's Abraham. That's, I'm not kidding you. It's like they.
You know, one thing I never understood about them either is how they keep their clothes so perfectly clean and white. I never understood that, because they literally live in outside garbage, trash. You know, they don't have like a trash system like we do here.
No.
And somehow they're always perfectly cleaned and can wear their clothes.
Yes.
And they're not covered in dust and dirt. Like, I spent like one day in my army uniform out there, and I had to take a shower for like 3 days straight because I was just covered in dust and camel dung. But it's just like, you know, it's impressive. It's just, that's part of their culture.
Well, these guys, the sheikhs, were in very different clothing. It was very motley, different colors,
very ornate,
rolls and wraps and big leather, big girths with big wide straps and sandals. And some had staffs. All had beards.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe half of it would be red,
yep,
and half gray. You could not tell an age. They all looked 100.
Yeah, and like the colors of their beard dictate like their status within their tribe, and things they associate with religiously or whatever else it is. So that's when they did that, you could see that a lot in Afghanistan too. Like, the different color beards meant you had different status within your hierarchy. So
sure. Well, they were all very impressed that we were there, and they greeted us, and Khalid gave us safe passage through Saudi, and which was wonderful.
That's great for you. Yeah, for sure. You don't want to go missing out there and become a CIA case.
It was very important. We were trained by an SAS Major, Jamie Lothar Pinkerton, real man. He was with the Irish Guard, and he was at the time a partner at Ackerman Insurance, mm-hmm. International Security Insurance. We got him through them because we were either going to go Blackwater, Centurion, or Triple Canopy to get training on how to maneuver through. We didn't have military training. I had military training, but Miles didn't, but not for the Middle East. And so Jamie had just worked with Ewan McGregor and Charlie Borman on Long Way Around, mm-hmm. which is their motorcycle trip. And so he trained us. He took us on for the same. He said, "Wow, I just worked with Ewan McGregor, and basically it's the same thing. They're not going to be in Saudi and Jordan." But his words were in relation to kidnap and ransom. If you are taken within the borders of Saudi, the chances of making it home is nil.
Correct.
It is a political statement. It's not Colombia and drugs. It's a political maneuver, and it doesn't mean that it's the prince or this or that, but within the border. It's a political statement. Jordan, westernized. Amman, you need to go here, go there, stay away from this, go there. And Syria, do you have your visas? No. Do you have your visas for Saudi? No. Working on it. He said, well, that it does take work. And we got the visas literally a week before, but it would have been months working it to get the visas. And once we got into Syria, the visas were no longer offering visas to Syria, but we had it already. So we were able to get inside the border just in time. This beautiful country, Amman, of Jordan, that has these lovely, archaeological places, Petra and, Aqaba, just wonderful, wonderful areas. 2 hotels in Amman were bombed 10 days before we left.
Yeah.
One was we're staying in. And it was like, okay, are we still going to stay in it? And it was yes. You know, Jamie says, stay on the ground floor in the back, always ground floor in the back. When it comes, does that line up with anything that you've heard?
Yeah.
If you're staying in a hotel, ground floor in the back. And many nice things, many very important practical things that Jamie passed along. But he said that truly the one thing that will carry you through all these countries is graciousness.
Very accurate. I would agree with that statement.
He said that everyone in these countries will acknowledge. In most of these places, you'll be saying, Assalamu alaikum, and they are required to respond. It sets the tone, no matter who they are. Wa alaikum assalam, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And he said in graciousness, hold the hand a second longer, shake, look directly in the eyes, calm, and speak with a, you know, it's not, hey man, how you doing? What's going on? None of that. And just how to get through and not go any place twice. Don't take the same route,
Yep.
and know that you're always being watched.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever you are, you're always being watched. You take cars, you have drivers. I would suggest you use local drivers, nothing fancy. You're
Yep.
going to have to figure out how to do that. And never tell the driver who the next driver is. No one should know who is picking you up next round.
Correct.
Next leg.
That is very accurate. When I was in Jordan and we were working in Oman, that's something we definitely had to pay attention to because we were always being tracked and you needed to throw them off. We had to change our routes up every time, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you approach checkpoint. We went through 39 checkpoints on the 1,100-mile trek. And if the individuals are out of uniform, not in uniform, get out of there.
Yep.
Back up, get out, approach slowly. Now, we wouldn't be driving, but he said, make sure that that's understood. We did go across the border. We walked across all borders. Hakel, getting in from Saudi Arabia into Jordan. And I don't recall the name of the place, going from Jordan into Syria. Going from Jordan into Israel, we went across the King Hussein Allenby Bridge.
So when Jordan and Syria, did you go through any of the gate checkpoints? Like we had like Tower 22. That's what we used to get in from Jordan into Syria. But
I don't recall.
Yeah,
who it was. I just know that at each place there were signs that said no photography. There was a camera with an X through it.
Yep.
And we still got plenty of pictures everywhere.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But the tough one was getting into Israel. We wanted to go across on bus, and yes, we knew a lot about terrorists bomb buses. Seems to be the big thing. But we wanted to see it, and we did, and we felt it, and we were packed like sardines, and it was hot, and the windows didn't come down, and we sat for over an hour before we moved. Then we would move and then sit again. Have no idea why.
Mm-hmm.
And then actually going through immigration is in the book. And it was quite an experience,
Yeah, for sure.
It was very aggressive, very loud. It was the first time we'd been in the middle, in the other side of the Jordan for 3 weeks, where it was quiet. People didn't raise their voice. People didn't yell. As soon as we got to the David Hotel, which is where we stayed in Jerusalem, the next morning, you heard a guy yelling across the room, "Mommy, where's your mother?" "She's coming." And you just go, whoa, we're back. We're back. But I love Jerusalem, and we loved, actually, I just thoroughly enjoyed all of it.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to get an opportunity to actually go on the Israeli side, and not come through the Middle Eastern side because I can't. Oh, sorry, the other countries. I can't cut through
Yeah.
that side. But when it's safe. The problem is being a military guy.
Yeah,
You,
it's a target. I mean, you're not.
yeah, you're always a freaking target over there. So
Yeah.
like when things calm
Yeah.
down, or maybe when I retire, or when I get out, it'll be a little bit safer. But you're always at the risk of getting abducted when you're over there.
Yeah.
So.
Well, did you make it to Damascus?
No, we were definitely not allowed.
Ooh.
I mean, here's the thing. I had plenty of assets in and around Damascus that I could read off of satellites and drone feeds and stuff. But when
Yes.
I was over there, it was extremely contentious in Syria.
Yeah.
And we were dealing with the Russians, and we were dealing with
Mhm.
ISIS, and then we were dealing with
Mhm.
all the Iranian-aligned militant groups, and even some guys from
Mhm.
North Korea were out there running radios. It was wild. But I mean, and the interesting thing was I was out there for the buildup for the invasion of Ukraine, so I got to witness the invasion of Ukraine in real time.
Wow.
And we were one of the first support units to send assets up there when that kicked off. And it was can't really talk much about that because that's still classified, but
Yeah.
it's not what people think it is. Let's just put it that way. It's very similar to the situation going on in Gaza. There's a lot more going on than people are aware, and I would not believe the media and the things that you're being told because it's not
Mhm.
necessarily accurate. So,
Mhm.
when we lose 80% of the things we're sending into Ukraine, it makes you wonder, well, where are the rest of where did it go? Where'd it go?
Mhm.
Weird.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, but
Right.
it's a problem, right? Like this is the problem when you have uneducated Americans or people trying to influence cultures and things they don't understand. Like, you can go back and look at the 1,000-year history of Ukraine and Russia, and you'll understand that there's a lot more things that don't make sense of what you're being told.
Right.
Like, and one thing I respect about this podcast and everything you're discussing is that you are a product of what happens when you immerse yourself in other people's culture and try to understand what they're doing and how they operate. And not everyone's going to be an American. Get over it. Yeah, we live in a great country and things are awesome. We have a trash system here, which is great because that's not a thing in the Middle East. There's just garbage and dead things everywhere.
Right.
And anyone who's been there knows exactly what I'm talking about. But
Mhm.
it's okay to work with people and integrate with cultures and respect other people and understand how to handshake, how to introduce yourself, and things like that. But it's not okay to try to force other people to assimilate to your values, right? And
Mhm.
and having that strong Westernized integration because it's not going to work out in your favor, and that's how people disappear overseas all the time, right?
Mhm.
um but you've been a product of that. You joined the military, you raised a family, you've done hard things in your life. You got rid of your ego, you've traveled around the world. Like I said, you're the modern day James Bond. Like I said, James Bond's not dead, everybody. He's sitting right here with me, and he just changed his name to Wells Jones. Like, come on, who knows a Wells Jones? I don't even know a Wells Jones. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, this is a cover name for the CIA. But I mean, like, you've done amazing and incredible things, and you've exemplified what it means to be a man. What it means to be a father, what it means to be a husband, and what this world has to offer all of us if we just try, fail again, try again, and succeed. You
Mhm.
know. So tell me, like, how did your Middle Eastern trip finish up? And then you definitely wrote a book about all this stuff too, didn't you?
Mhm. Yes. Yeah. The Middle East, it finished up. One of the things that drew us to the Middle East is that we were, um, you know, going back in the conversation, it was about a play. Well, we ended up being introduced to a Broadway producer
Hmm.
that has multiple Tony Awards for big shows that everybody knows, and she bought the idea in 10 minutes. It's to bring Lawrence back to life. Commission a writer to write a play with Lawrence to show how we got into this Middle East mess.
That's amazing.
So it's evolved. We've had 4 different writers. 3 were British.
Hmm.
Actually, 2 were British. 1 was Irish. Known people. No need to mention their names. Wonderful people. They weren't able to deliver what we were looking for. We have a woman doing it now, and she centered it around Gertrude Bell, who was the Oriental Secretary, the only woman in the Middle East, and she was big. She's the one that created the Baghdad Museum that was ransacked
Yeah.
back in the day. At any rate, we have a play that we've been working on for 20 years. And that was one of the reasons for going, is to get our feet in the sand, our butts in the camel saddles, which we did. We did a 4-day camel ride from Aqaba through Wadi Rum and around, 3 of us,
Hmm.
Miles and I and a guide. So we came back with a level of understanding. We thought about a book, but we were engrossed with the play. and the playwright and just voluminous notes and continued research until 2023 and October 7th. And we're in close contact because of the book and doing podcasts and all these the different things. Actually, since October 7th, right after we just said we have to do it. If we're going to write a book, we need to do it now. Join the conversation and
Right.
give people the view and the foundation to how this anger turned into hatred. That's, there's no atonement for this
Right.
hatred that's going on. And so we wrote the book quickly. We had all these notes, all the pictures, all these video. It's been in our mind. And like you said earlier, when you experience life in such extremes, you don't have to take pictures. They are embedded. They're embedded in your being, and the recall is immediate.
And it's also, and that's exemplified in your children as well, right? Like you pass on these traits and the things that you've learned, and you know what? It's okay not to tell everybody everything.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of things that I've experienced overseas that I don't talk about, and I have a very close group of friends with people that were there with me that I experienced it, and I also volunteer for an NGO called Developing World Connections, right? So I travel to other countries and I build schools and things like that. So I've been to Peru, I've been to Nepal, I've been to India, which so in a non-combat role, I've done other things, so you get a little bit more access when you're doing you're not walking around in a military uniform or looking like you work for the CIA. You know what I mean? But like when you sit there and you look at like Mount Everest and the Himalayas and you're sitting there with some of the poorest people in the world and they're happy. They're happy. That's one thing I've noticed so much about all my experiences overseas is that people who have nothing, that live on less than $1 a day, are happier than almost any American I've ever interacted with.
Right.
And it's that simple. And it's this life of adventure and learning and absorbing cultures and meeting other people and watching these kids and these women smile just because you help make some concrete and help them build a home from an earthquake. And actually, I was out there when an earthquake happened. It was absolutely nuts. So we're sitting there. We went to the Tiger Preserve in Nepal. We had like 3 days off while the cement was curing on this structure we were building. And so we got to this Tiger Preserve and we're sitting there. And I thought that the rhinoceroses and the elephants got out because I'm sitting there in this building. I'm sleeping on a bamboo like cot, and all of a sudden the whole building is shaking and my mattress thing snaps and collapses and I hit the ground and I'm like, oh, this is where we die because these animals are just going to run through this building that's made out of mud and sticks. And then like 5 minutes later, it all stops and everyone's screaming and laughing and crying and they're all outside popping beers because they only have like 2 types of beers over there. It's what is it called? Gurkha Strong. And like, the Gurkhas, Gurkha Strong. And they're all out there laughing around the fire pit. And I'm like, what the hell just happened? They're like, oh, that was an earthquake. I'm like, that was an earthquake. And they're like, oh yeah, the town down the street's gone. Everyone's dead. I'm like, what? Like, can we go help? They're like, we don't have like military response out here. We don't have 911. They said, over the next couple days, we'll go out there and help dig out the people. But, they live in these, obviously they don't have OSHA out there. So they're all just building things out of rocks and sticks and stuff. And the next day we were able to fly back in this little tiny airplane, which the next day that same aircraft from that same company crashed and killed everybody on there. So I'm like, hey, I got the good one this time. And you know how that is. Like, they don't have aviation safety stuff like they do in the United States, right? So we get back to Kathmandu. And right as we landed, 2 Air Force C-17s were just landing and offloading tents and everything to rebuild this community and stuff. But you never heard about that on the news. Like, that wasn't a publicized event. But that's just what we do as Americans. We try to help these other countries as best as we can. But but even then, they're all still laughing and they're happy and they have nothing and they have no shoes. And like, some of these women, like, they're wearing these beautiful dresses and no shoes and they're mixing concrete and throwing bricks. And I'm like, what is going on right now? I can't even get the kids down the street to mow a lawn. You know what I mean? And these entire villages, and these entire villages are just rebuilding their communities, like, and just moving on, right? And that's just how so many cultures are outside of the United States. Same thing when I was in Peru. These people have nothing, and they're the happiest people I've ever met. You know, hiking through the Andes, and these guys, like the Sherpas, man, those people are nuts. These guys are wearing like Adidas soccer shoes. And they're carrying like 150 pounds and they're running up Mount Everest or they're running up the Andes. And I'm sitting there like, dying wearing hiking boots and like, a 35-pound military rucksack. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm embarrassed. Like, I am embarrassed. And it's kind of like what you brought up in the beginning of the podcast. It's like, stay physically fit, respect your body. You know what I mean? Fitness and that's the best way you could experience this world. And Mother Nature trying to kill you all the time is to stay in shape and be able to hike those mountains, right?
Health is wealth.
Health is wealth, 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
And man, those Andes are, oh my, I don't know if you've been down to South America in the Andes, but intimidating. Like you think the Rockies are bad and 14ers are bad? No.
Yeah.
These mountains are at like 20,000 feet and they're like near, because they're the youngest mountains in the world, right? Like where Chile and Argentina collapsed on the Pacific, tectonic plates. Like they are so steep. And we hiked for 4 days through the jungle, which I thought I was going to die. Like we went up and down like 16,000-foot mountains in 4 days. Like I thought I was going to die. And I'm like, oh, I'm from Colorado. I could hike. No, I cannot. I get out there and then we break on the 4th day. We get we had to literally climb up the monkey stairs. You're on all fours trying to get up this old ruin to get over this mountain. I'm like, if I tip back, I'm going to fall to my death, and that's it, right? And we get up there and we cross over the area to the flatland, and then you can see Machu Picchu in the sunrise. You know what I mean? And then you see all the tourist buses. I'm like, oh, you mean we could have took a bus this entire time? You know what I mean? No, we did it the hard way. We hiked through the jungle for 4 days, and they're like, they're making us food, and the Sherpas are with us. It was such an amazing experience. But like, and then you're seeing like what they built like tens of thousands of years ago, and it's still perfect masonry that we can't even do that today with the machinery and the technology we have now. But these people built this thing like, whatever. There's lots of theories now going around with like Graham Hancock about how old these places are, and it's actually really fascinating because seeing it in real time, you're like, how the heck did they move these giant boulders, and they're perfectly square and they're perfectly flush, and they move them up this mountain? Like, how is that possible? And then there's another area right outside of Machu Picchu. They called it the observatory. Okay. Yes. So Machu Picchu is already at like 12,000 feet, right? There's another mountain right in front of in the middle of Machu Picchu that's literally, it almost looks like a Disney cartoon, like in the Emperor's New Groove, where it's like this vertical, right? It's almost like 75 degrees to get up there. And if you look really close, there's a little foot trail that goes all the way to the top. And at the top of this very steep, another 2,000-foot mountain on top of that, they built an observatory for their astrologists back then, like the cultures. Those people carried those rocks from the bottom somehow and made it all the way to the top and built another structure on top of this that survived earthquakes for tens of thousands of years. You're just like, I can't even comprehend what humans are capable of. You know what I mean? And that was way before modern helicopters and things that could actually get things up there, right? So I think you are a testament to the human spirit and what humans are capable of in just a short period of time you've been on Earth, right? And when you get to go experience these other cultures and see these other things, you get to understand that you as well are capable of more than you ever thought you were, and you just have to put your mind to it, and you just have to go do it. Just go do it. Go buy a plane ticket and go.
Our capacity is way beyond what we think. We just have to put ourselves in the position to stretch it.
I agree.
For me, when I'll tell you, wherever I'm driving or if I'm on my motorcycle and I see above tree line, that's where I want to be. I want to go. I envision it. I'll stop. I'll look at it. It's just like looking at a slab and going, okay, root's going to go this way up. We'll do that crack, do that. But looking at a big mountain and just going, how much time would it take? Just experiencing from experience, and just go up to the high meadows where it's just the low grass and just the air is so thin, but it's fresh, wonderful. And if there's water, get in it. I love getting in cold water. It doesn't matter. If it's snow runoff, get in it.
No, I agree.
Experience it.
Go out and do things. So, Wells, I've had such a fun time with you today. Like, this has been one of the most fun podcasts I've done probably in the 7 years I've been podcasting.
Oh, for real?
No, really. I mean, we need to do this again in the future. I also have to connect with your other partner because I know there was some confusion. Like, I thought Wells Jones was Miles Spencer, and I'm like, these are definitely CIA guys. Like, they're emailing from the same thing. I definitely want to bring you back on. I want to bring him on. I want to keep talking about the human experience, because I think these are important discussions to have. And when everyone is looking at the politics and all the crazy stuff going on in the world, what it comes down to is, what are you doing? You know,
Right.
are you a citizen? Like, are you actually participating in your communities? Are you raising a family? Are you adventuring around the world? Are you taking advantage of the life that God has given you on the short period of time, in the blink of an eye you're on this earth, right?
Yeah.
And where can people find your book? Where can people connect with you? Where can people reach out to you? I think that's super important.
Well, I did send you some information. Miles is on social media. He's got a big following on social media,
Okay.
and we're using that. I'm on LinkedIn as Wells Tad Jones, but the book is called A Line in the Sand. It's by Miles Spencer, Wells Jones, and it's through Amazon. And so we have it in a book form. We have an Audible that is just fantastic with Eduardo Ballerini, the narrator. He's one of those guys that he's the high end guy. We just happen to, it's when you know someone, they say, yeah, you should, I'll give Eduardo a call, see if he has an opening. And so he did. And so we got that because we really rushed this book to get it out. And so Amazon, and then there's a Kindle as well. And you'll see going to Amazon that there's a second book in the works, and it is called Havana Familia. And it is in A Line in the Sand. You'll discover that there's a time travel device. It's a dagger with a cryptex, and it's the book is historical fiction. The history is spot on, and we use to get to the history to observe and listen with our lead characters through this time travel device, and then they come back to current day, which happens to be 2006.
Hey,
Havana Familia is 1958. Che Guevara and Fidel Castro are
contentious people in modern human history.
Yes, they're just hitting Havana, and then the present day is 2016 when Obama opened up the doors. Again, a lot of on-hands experience in Havana, 2016, and a great deal of research, and that's our second book. And it is Adventure to Understandings.
Awesome. So Adventures to Understanding, guys, A Line in the Sand. Go out and get those on Amazon now. Mr. Wells Jones, a.k.a. James Bond. He's not dead. He's still with us, everybody. Don't let them lie. That's why they're coming out with a new franchise. You should be Q in the next movie, actually, when they come out with the next generation. But yeah, hang on for a minute here. We're going to do the outro. But everybody, please connect with Mr. Wells Jones, and we're going to bring on his partner, Miles Spencer. We can get that scheduled because these are the podcasts I love doing because, you know, as much as I love throwing hand grenades and flashbangs into rooms of congressional members, it's about Americans doing American things around the world, and this is what I'm here for. So thank you so much, Mr. Jones, for coming on the podcast today, and we will see you guys next time.
Mr. Rita, thank you.
You're welcome. I love that. I love that song.